Hello, my fellow students of magic. I am the Silver Witch, and in this video, we're going to be continuing on from our last lecture, where we were talking about using protective spells, rituals, items, symbols, etc., etc. And these were very important to talk about our today's topic, which in this video, we're going to be talking about gods, spirits, and other otherworldly beings that exist in different realms of spirituality. So, to start off, what is the normal thing that people have been sort of exposed to when it comes to different realms? Normally, most people would believe in the idea of two different afterlives, one of them being heaven and the other being hell, due to the exposure to either of the majority religions of Christianity or Islam. And there is a reason for this, obviously, because there are many different religions that, of course, associate a divine realm and an underworld realm. But there are also plenty of other religions that have plenty of other realms as well. For example, in the Norse Asatru faith, there are actually 9 realms of existence. There is Asgard, which is where the divine gods normally reside, Helheim, which would be the underworld of the Norse pantheon of Yggdrasil. And then there would also be realms like Alfheim or Jotunheim or other different worlds or realms that exist that whose names I can't currently remember. Um, there are also spirits that would exist in our own realm, in the physical realm, of course. And being able to think and to communicate with these spirits and otherworldly beings is something that is a part of witchcraft as well. And to also give a little bit of detail in mind, for spirits that have passed away, just to let you know, that is a part of necromancy. So if you want to feel a little bit like a necromancer, talking with the dead is a part of necromancy. So if you have the ability to do so, feel free to call yourself a necromancer. You don't have to raise the dead to be a necromancer. All you have to do is just talk to them, and you're a necromancer. Little fun thing to keep in mind. And in this video, I also kind of want to do a little fun fact thing because, as I earlier mentioned, there is the realm of hell, obviously, which is meant to be sort of the underworld and such. And something I want to mention is the difference between a daimon and a demon, where demons are currently commonly associated with being spirits that reside in hell and are servants of the Dark Prince, Satan slash Lucifer, obviously. But the daimon actually was the classical version and the original version, where the daimon were originally messengers of the gods, especially in the Hellenistic pantheon of Greece and Rome. But obviously, this got translated into our current understanding of demons because, well, wouldn't you know, Christianity just heard about daimons and were like, oh, these are beings of another religion. Clearly, they must be servants of Satan. And we all kind of get the rest of how that whole thing went down because this is just what happens. It's generally what happens, really. But yes. So on to the further subject of how is it that we are going to be talking to other or speaking to otherworldly demons. To start off, basically, I want to give this one very important detail is that if you do plan on communicating with spirits or otherworldly beings or gods, I want to make this very important information very clear. Very important, extremely important. Am I showing how important it is? It better be because it is. So, the thing you must keep in mind is to be cautious of every single being. If you have not met them, or if you have not learned about them, then be cautious, because you can't necessarily trust everything, and you most certainly cannot trust all beings just because of their divine status. So, like, say, example, you wanted to speak to an angel, don't always trust them, because angels are not always benevolent beings. In fact, there are actually a number of angels that actually are not necessarily benevolent. There are plenty of malevolent angels. And the same can be for demons. There can be benevolent demons, as a matter of fact. morality is not necessarily something that is linked to what faction or what divine hierarchy a being belongs to. It is important to remember that each and every being is capable of both good and evil, of both benevolence and malevolence. So always be wary of any being you come across, no matter how much of an angel they seem to be, no matter how divine the god seems to be, or whether something looks to be demonic. But that doesn't mean you should, so you should be cautious of everything that you have not interacted with before. You should always be aware of what spirits you come across and what spirits you open yourself to, because any of them could have any sense of danger that you are not prepared for, so you must be prepared ahead of time when dealing with or communicating with spirits of any kind, because it doesn't matter how trustworthy they seem to be. Basically, to keep in mind, think of it like interacting with, say, Loki, or actually, Loki seems like a pretty common enough example. So think of it as like interacting with Loki. They could be offering something, but at the same time, they might just be hiding a knife or a dagger behind their back. So just keep that in mind. Just be cautious until you are at the level of actually trusting them and knowing that they are trustworthy. Always keep in mind to be cautious about them. Always. Now, to continue on further, the next thing you should do is obviously before preparing to speak to a demon or god or spirit or any otherworldly being, do your research. So do not start out by trying to communicate with a spirit without doing your homework. You always must know everything you possibly can about being able to communicate with spirits, how you would summon them, what kind of spirit you're communicating with, and also how you would be able to end the summoning. To start off with this, I have an example where I actually have a shrine bell, and I use that to both open the summoning of spirits, however many I wish or who I wish to summon, and when I ring the bell once, I summon the spirits I wish, but when I ring the bell and I have finished everything, then I have closed the summoning. No more spirits can come to me without permission, and such and such. So it's always important that you have a way to open the portal when you summon spirits, but also have a way that you can remember to close the portal, because you don't want anything coming in after you unexpected. Because if you do, well, malevolent things can happen due to spirits, and the only way you could probably deal with that is through exorcism, and that is something that will have to be a much higher level to deal with, because as a beginner witch, chances are you're probably not going to be able to have the capability of exorcisms or things like that, especially with the sort of new powers that you might be dealing with. And if you aren't a witch and have just been interested in watching these videos, well, then that kind of makes it even more difficult because, well, if you don't even know how to use magic, well, that kind of makes it a bit easier to deal with you then. So, if you are summoning spirits or doing anything that would summon a spirit, always be sure to know how to open the portal and also to remember to close the portal when you are not using it so that nothing bad happens. And so also, doing your research on spirits, or especially a particular spirit or otherworldly being, will actually be able to help you in furthering your bond with that spirit. And once you do so, you are actually showing that you care about contacting that spirit or that otherworldly being. They will actually care about being able to form a bond with you, forming a relationship with you, and further communicating with you. And there is more that you can learn from them. And most of the way that you're going to be doing this is either just listening or simply astrally projecting, where in that instance you would be able to visit other realms that in the spiritual plane. But in order to do that, as I've mentioned before, it will take a very long time for you to actually achieve. It will take days, weeks, months, possibly even years. It took a very long while for me to be able to do something like that, so do not feel ashamed if it takes you a while to learn how to astrally project. And it would require cleansing of the chakras and such, but that will be a different video because there's a lot to go in about chakra cleansing and such. When you wish to communicate with a particular spirit, wearing items that is meaningful to them or having symbols meaningful to them might be something that they are interested in. offerings that they appreciate is also a way to get their attention. For example, I actually have some sake here. So if you have anybody that is interested in like sake, then that could be something you could offer and that they would appreciate being offered to them. And obviously, you're not going to physically drink it. They're more gonna like have the essence of it, and you would just have to drink it yourself once you realize that they have finished in absorbing their offering and such. I haven't offered this to anyone, so I am free to drink it. So anyway, and obviously, if you are not of age, then do not offer alcohol because you are not going to be the one finishing that offering. Hopefully. And another thing, let's see, that we can talk about in this sense. Oh, when you are trying to summon or when you are trying to communicate with a particular spirit, of course, you have to have a purpose behind it. You have to have a reason in doing so. You can't simply just astrally project to them or try to summon them just for the sake of summoning or astrally projecting. You have to have a reason for wanting to communicate with them, a reason for why you want to start a conversation with them. It's kind of the same in real life because if you're trying to talk to someone for the sake of talking to someone, well, then you don't really have a whole lot to talk about. You'll just be like asking, so, how are you doing? Doing good. How are you? How about you? Doing good? Good. And then it's going to get awkward, and we don't want to have that awkward station or situation because if that happens, well, then that makes it less likely that they actually want to talk to you because then they'll remember you as that, oh, it's that person that decided to talk to me for no reason. Just gonna ignore that and pretend they didn't say anything. So yeah, always keep in mind that they are individuals as well. They're not just going to wait around for you and always be at your beck and call just because you are trying to summon them. You have to remember that they are their own individuals as well, and that they have a right to communicate with you if they want to, as much as you have a right to communicate with them if you want to. So it has to be a two-way street that you actually both want to talk to each other as well. Because it's not really going to mean anything if you're just going to if it's just going to be a one-sided thing. And that's a very important thing about communicating with spirits and otherworldly beings is that it is an equal partnership. So no matter how powerful one is over the other, you have to remember that you have to be on equal footing. You both have to have a meaningful relationship for you to build off of and to work with. For example, I worship 9 different gods, actually. And with each of them, I have a relationship where we each have an equal partnership, that we have an equal relationship where we understand each other and we can speak to each other on friendly terms and be open with how we are feeling about each other. And it is important to have that open feeling because, again, no matter how powerful or strong that being may be, the reason they want to communicate with you and you would want to communicate with them is not just that you could be a meandering yes man or woman for them. It's that you can have a meaningful conversation and a meaningful relationship where you both feel that you can be completely open and honest with each other and that you can work with each other as equal partners. And that relationship may vary in different ways. You might see them as a mother or a father figure. I have a few gods that I feel this relationship with. You could have simply a friendship relationship. You can have a mentor student relationship. Again, have a few gods like that. And you can have a sort of leadership relationship with them where you feel as a dedicated servant. That is also acceptable as long as you are doing so by your own will rather than just because they're a powerful figure, so I'm just going to listen to them and not really give my own opinion on things, because that's not really the relationship that any spirits or beings are really looking for, because again, they want meaningful relationships. And as a witch, that is kind of part of what we do. We have our own path to do things, but part of why we communicate with spirits is so that we can learn from spirits, so that we can learn about the spiritual realm and how they affect the physical realm as well. So it's very important to have that meaningful relationship so that you can learn and build off of these relationships. And so that and that the purpose of these relationships is so that you can grow along with the beings that you are communicating with. So it's important that these relationships be something that you both feel you are learning and growing from. Because if not, then there's really no point in having that relationship. An example I could give, actually, is that there was a time where I wanted to serve Hades a little bit and have him as one of my gods, but then he also said, no, I'm not really interested in having a relationship with you, and that is something that I accepted because it had to be a two-way partnership, that it had to be a two-way friendship, and since that Hades wasn't interested in that, I had to accept it. And that's just kind of how it works sometimes. You'll have friendships with some people, other times you might not. And sometimes you might have had a meaningful relationship one time, but then another time it just kind of doesn't work anymore. I had this with Tyr before, but after some revelations that came up, it no longer was able to be. I still respect Tyr, but at the same time, we kind of just aren't really at speaking terms, to say. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of something that can happen occasionally. Sometimes you might have meaningful relationships with spirits, gods, or otherworldly beings, but then at another time, it just might not work anymore, and that's completely fine. And because it happens in the real world. In a way, the spiritual world is actually is just a parallel of the physical world, and that is something we have to remember: is that the spiritual realm and the physical realm work together in a way that they can be similar, and that we always have to remember that sometimes just because it is a different realm doesn't mean that it is simply just so distantly odd and weird that it doesn't make any sense. You have to remember that the spirit realm is just another version of the physical realm that we exist in, and that there are ways to make sense of it. We just have to figure the rest of it out, the parts that we don't understand, really. So, there are other things that could be possible as well when it comes to communicating with spirits and gods and otherworldly beings. And definitely, it's a part of being able to hone your craft and learn more about your craft. Depending on the being or the god that you are working with, they can help you in different ways. The best examples I can think of, obviously, are gods. So, like, for example, if I wish to do moon magic, I could look to Lord Thoth or Mother Hecate. If I wanted to work with dark magic, I could work with the Morrigan. If I wanted to do healing magic, it could be Mother Isis. If I wanted to learn about, let's see, what other ones I could. If I wanted to learn more about knowledge, I could look to Lord Thoth again, and etc., etc. It could go on and on. Depending on the spirit, or depending on the particular individual that you are working with, they can help you in different ways, and it is important to be able to learn about these different ways that they can hone your craft and help you in your skills as a witch. And of course, you can also look to your ancestors because, well, they have a lineage to you that that kind of has them want to assist you more as as someone who is spiritually open, to which witches are more often than not capable of being. And of course, this could happen with any individual, really, psychics or anyone who is religiously devoted. It could happen to anybody, but those who are born spiritually open are definitely more capable in being so. But I also have the belief that anybody is possible, that for anybody it can be possible. You just have to work for that. And I think that's really all I can use to explain how to speak with these otherworldly beings. So, the first thing you want to do, obviously, do your research. Learn as much as you can before speaking with these spiritual individuals. Second, make sure that you exert a level of caution, not one where you are immediately hostile, but one where you are being healthily cautious, not paranoid, but just cautious in trying to see if like they are a threat or not. Because even if they seem trustworthy, you always have to remember that just like people, they can be hostile in their own way. They just might not seem that way. They have the ability to lie just as we do, and of course, even the most trusting of the most trustworthy of angels can just be the most devious and lying and cunning beings. Bleh. And let's see. Third, always have a meaningful reason for wanting to contact a spirit or otherworldly being, because if you don't have a meaningful reason, then why are you even trying in the first place? If you're doing it for the sake of just doing it, then they're not going to be interested in it. The fourth thing you want to do, obviously, is that you want to build a meaningful relationship. Don't just be someone who constantly agrees with them simply just because they are an otherworldly being or a higher power, because that's not a meaningful relationship. That's just one where they seem to hold all of the power, and that's not something that interests them. Or maybe it does, but that's definitely not a relationship that you would want to have. Is definitely, especially, and that's something else I want to talk about. Do not get yourself involved in toxic relationships, whether it be in real life or with spirits. Never get yourself involved in toxic situations or in toxic relationships. They don't want to be in toxic relationships either, so do not be toxic with them. Toxicity is an absolute no go. So, whether it be you or whether it be them, no go for the toxic relationships at all whatsoever. And finally, be sure that you have a good connection with them. Some items, symbols, and offerings might be helpful in being able to strengthen the communication and the bond with whomever you are trying to speak with. And most of all, just simply, whatever the purpose it is you are speaking to them for, have it be something that is meaningful. Don't have just some random reason, just have an actual reason that is meant to hone your craft or whatnot. Maybe even catching up with them. Just talking with them in a friendly way is also good, because that means you are trying to strengthen your bond and your relationship, and thus trying to have more of a meaningful relationship. I know I say that word a lot, but it's an important word to talk about these relationships with, because that's the whole reason you are speaking to them, is to have a meaningful relationship, rather than simply just having this greedy purpose of like, I want more power, or I want this and that. I mean, those are purposes that you might want to work with, that they can help you with, but ultimately the goal is to have a meaningful relationship, because meaningful relationships are what really strengthen your craft. So I guess you could call it power friendship or whatever, but really it's just the relationships and the bonds that do help you in being able to better communicate and better to be able to learn from other spirits, is by forming these relationships. And that's kind of the gist of it. And I think that's all I have to talk about for this video, and I hope you all learned something in this video. There will be more to come later on. In the next video, I'm planning on talking about the first art of magic, and eventually I'll get around to talking about my own pantheon. I think I might do that after talking about the first art of magic, but that'll be due for later. And to end this video, so mote be, and blessings be.